The archive storage room smelled of dust and age. Dr. Abigail Foster had been there for 3 hours, sorting through boxes donated by the estate of a recently deceased local historian. Most of it was routine, old records, newspapers, and photographs that would eventually be filed away and forgotten. Her colleague called from the doorway, asking if she wanted dinner. Abigail waved him off. She wanted to finish this last box. At 38, she had spent nearly half her life working with history, piecing together the past through fragile scraps. As the university's lead archivist, she had seen thousands of photographs, but this collection felt different. The materials had belonged to Thomas Whitaker, a lifelong resident who died at 94. Among them were glass plate negatives and prints from as early as 1908. Most were ordinary: street views, picnics, children at school. But one stood out. It showed a boy, maybe 8 or 9, sitting stiffly in a photographer's studio. He wore a white-collared shirt and dark jacket, his hair neatly parted. His serious expression matched the era when portraits required long exposure times. In his hands, he gripped a book. His eyes unsettled Abigail. They looked too sharp, too knowing. She slipped the photo into a sleeve but couldn't shake the feeling that the boy's gaze followed her around the room. That night, she dreamed of him. He stood at the foot of her bed, lips moving as though reciting words she couldn't hear. She woke at 3:17 a.m., her heart racing. Back at the archives, she pulled the photo again. The faded label on the back read, Edward, 1908. She decided to digitize it using the university's new scanner. As she zoomed in, she noticed details. The book had no title, only an embossed circular symbol with a faint design inside. The boy's knuckles were tight on the book, as though protecting it. When she studied his eyes, she froze. Reflected in one of them was a tall, thin figure standing behind the camera. The shape was too distorted to be the photographer. It looked wrong. She tried to dismiss it as a flaw in the glass plate, but unease lingered. Her phone rang, breaking her focus. A colleague reminded her about a lecture she had promised to give. After the call, she printed the magnified section of the eye, the figure inside now staring at her from paper. Curious, she went to the town's historical society that evening. Together with Sarah Jenkins, the volunteer on duty, she searched records. After hours of digging, they found a boy, Edward Blackwood, age 9 in 1908, son of James Blackwood, who owned a bookshop until a fire destroyed it in 1912. Rumors said James specialized in rare and unusual books, even occult texts. Records showed he died in the fire, but Edward's trail vanished. No death record, no later mention. Newspapers from that year confirmed the fire, hinted at arson, and noted disturbing materials found in the ruins. One follow-up said Edward was sent to live with relatives, but after that he disappeared from town history. Abigail returned home unsettled. The strange book, the fire, the missing boy, it all connected back to that photograph. When she zoomed in on the symbol again, she found it matched an occult seal linked to rituals said to open doorways between worlds. Though skeptical, she kept researching and discovered James Blackwood's name listed among collectors of rare, outer texts, forbidden writings tied to things beyond normal reality. Later, she showed the image to Daniel Wright, a photography professor. He confirmed the photo was authentic and enhanced the reflection in Edward's eye. The figure became clearer, unnaturally tall, distorted, its face hidden by something dark with slits where eyes should be. Even Daniel avoided looking at it for long. Abigail added the printout to her growing file and kept searching. A lead pointed to Vermont, where Edward may have lived with a distant relative, Robert Hayes. Hayes was described as a scholar of strange subjects. When he died in 1920, Edward inherited his property but then vanished from records again. Her dreams worsened. Each night Edward appeared closer, his book open, whispering words she could almost hear. Always at 3:17 a.m., she woke in terror. Determined, she visited the site of the old bookshop, now a coffee shop. The staff mentioned flickering lights and strange stories. They directed her to Old Pete at the hardware store. Pete confirmed his grandfather had been at the fire. From an old journal, he revealed the truth. James Blackwood had not died in the flames. His throat was cut. Officials covered it up, blaming Edward. Pete's grandfather saw the boy across the street that night, clutching the same book. He wrote that the boy's eyes were not right. Pete handed Abigail the journal and warned her. The book was not just a book. His grandfather had called it a door. Some doors, Pete said, are never meant to be opened. That night, Abigail read the entire journal. Most entries were ordinary, weather notes, farm work, local gossip. But a few mentioned the Blackwoods. In 1910, the writer described James Blackwood as unstable, saying he had returned from Europe with a trunk full of disturbing books. In early 1912, another entry noted that young Edward no longer attended school and was rumored to be helping his father with strange experiments. The last entry, written a week after the fire, said the sheriff ruled James's death a suicide, claiming he set the blaze himself. But no one in town believed it. Too many odd items were found in the ruins, books untouched by flames while everything around them had turned to ash. Men from Boston arrived and removed those books quietly. Abigail shut the journal, her thoughts racing. What kind of books could survive a fire? What experiments had James involved his son in? And what truly happened to Edward after he vanished? She stared at the photograph again, the boy's tight grip on the book, the strange reflection in his eye. It unsettled her more than any other image she had handled in her career. Just before midnight, she sent emails to rare book experts asking about the symbol on the book. That night, her dream shifted. Edward was closer now, standing by her bed, the book open in his hands. She heard him speak. His voice was that of a child but carried a chilling weight. "He is coming," he said in English. "The door is opening." When she tried to ask who, she found herself unable to move. Edward smiled, a knowing, unnatural smile. "You found me," he whispered. "Now I've found you." The book in his hands began to glow. Its pages turned on their own, faster and faster, until a tall, thin figure started to emerge. Abigail woke with a gasp at 3:17 a.m. This time, the air in her room felt heavy, charged. A strange smell lingered, like ozone mixed with something rotten. She turned on her lamp, scanning the room. Everything looked normal until her eyes caught a dark, circular stain on the wall across from her bed. Her chest tightened as she stepped closer. The stain was the size of a plate and faintly marked with the same symbol from the book. She backed away. The shape pulsed, almost as if something was pressing from the other side. She fled the room, spending the night on her couch with all the lights on. By morning, the stain was gone. Abigail told herself she was exhausted, her mind overworked. She tried to distract herself with errands, but her thoughts always circled back to Edward. That evening, an email arrived from Dr. Eliza Werner, a rare book expert. Dr. Werner identified the symbol as the seal of the watching eye, connected to a text known as the Book of Doors. Only 3 copies were known, one in France, one in the British Library, and one believed destroyed in a New England fire in the early 1900s. The book was written in an undeciphered language and thought to describe rituals for opening paths to other worlds. Some claimed the book was alive, watching its owners. Dr. Werner warned Abigail that its history was violent and that the book could not be destroyed. Abigail read the email twice. The pieces fit too well. James Blackwood had owned this book. Edward had held it in the photo. James died under suspicious circumstances. Edward disappeared. And now, more than a century later, Abigail had drawn the book's attention. That night she heard pages turning in her office. Her computer glowed though she had turned it off. The photograph of Edward was on the screen. His eyes now stared directly at her, and the book in his hands was open. Then a new email appeared, from edwardblackwood@mail.com. The subject line read, "You open the door." She panicked. Was someone pranking her? Daniel? Or was this real? The wall stain returned, larger this time, spreading with the same symbol glowing faintly in its center. The surface blurred, becoming less solid, less real. Through it she saw a swirling darkness filled with shifting shapes, and at the threshold stood Edward, just as in the photograph. "You found me," he said, stepping through. "And now you've been found." He explained the book was no ordinary volume. It was a key, a gateway, a living thing that always chose a keeper. His father had tried to destroy it and failed. Edward had protected it. And now, the book had chosen Abigail. She resisted, but the book pulled her. When she touched it, knowledge and visions poured into her mind, endless voids, creatures older than Earth, doors opening across worlds. Edward faded, his duty finished. Abigail, trembling and cold, became the new keeper. Months later, Professor Daniel Wright examined a newly donated photo. It showed a boy holding a book. The same unsettling gaze. The same reflection. Daniel remembered Abigail's case, her disappearance, the stain on her wall dismissed as water damage. As he studied the photo, his phone chimed. An email had arrived, from abigail.fostermail.com. The subject line, "I found something you should see." It asked him to meet her at the archives at 8 p.m. His rational mind screamed not to go. But curiosity, the same that had driven Abigail, pushed him forward. That night, in the darkened archives, something waited. Something that once had been Abigail Foster. Something that now carried the Book of Doors.